Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Rank where I climb the online VGC 20 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. Today we are trying out a really interesting team featuring Alolan Raichu, Pincurchin, and Urshifu. These are all Pokemon that I wanted to try out in the last couple of days, and so excited to have a team that features all three of them. This was actually built by the exact same player that built the Coaching Riolu team that we featured back on Showdown. He's a Japanese player, and he's really built some of the most innovative teams I've seen in the last couple of years. So thanks to him once again for providing the team. You can follow him on Twitter in the description below, as well as try out the rental team yourselves. The code is on the screen, but also included in the description below. The idea of this team is definitely to try to get as much damage off as possible with Raichu, which, you know, can take advantage both of Psychic Terrain and Electric Terrain. Boosted by Electric Terrain, obviously becomes super fast. And then you've also just got a lot of other hyper offense coming from Crit Togekiss, Cinderace, which, you know, we kind of got demolished by yesterday, and Urshifu. So obviously, a couple rough matches yesterday. I actually played some more afterwards and took a couple more L's, so I think when people always ask me, like, what's a good way to, you know, stop a losing streak, I always tell people, like, stop playing, but sometimes I don't adhere to that, so our rating has definitely gone down a little bit, but I have no doubt we'll be able to recover it in the next couple of episodes or so. But it's a brand new day, so let's just jump into today's episode, and thank you guys as always for watching. Win or lose, I hope you guys enjoy the series, and I really appreciate you all for coming out and watching the series consistently. Question of the day, I am curious what you think about Pincurchin in general, and what are the odds that as we try out Pincurchin Raichu, we go up against an opposing Pincurchin Raichu team to start the episode? I would not have expected that. Okay. Huh. So this is super interesting. Like, I have Sucker Punch on this thing, right? So, like, I can actually do some damage to the Raichu. Togekiss looks really good outside of Raichu. So if we can knock out Raichu early on, then we can kind of sweep with Togekiss. My opponent also doesn't really have great Psychic Resist. So I think we definitely want Raichu, Pincurchin. We want a Dynamax Togekiss. And I'm thinking Urshifu is the last one just because Urshifu also has Sucker Punch. That's actually going to really demolish the Raichu. The only question is what I want to lead with, right? I don't mind Raichu plus, like, Urshifu, I think. This is pretty flexible. The idea, once again, is if we knock out Raichu, Togekiss should cleanly sweep this game. So, I'm excited to just play out this one, honestly. Really cool teams on both ends. And, yeah, the Raichu-Pincurchin mirror match in our first game of today's episode. So, yeah, let's jump into it. As always, if you guys enjoy, please share your support by leaving a like in the video. I'd really appreciate it. And, yeah, you know, obviously, the goal of this series is to try to teach and educate you guys about competitive Pokemon as much as possible. And, you know, I'd like to do that by winning games. But, you know, sometimes losing streaks happen. So after yesterday's episode, would like to bounce back from it. But like I said, regardless, I appreciate everyone coming out and watching the videos and for, you know, the support. It's very much appreciated. Okay, Politoed Kingdra. I mean, I could go for, like, Choice Specs, Rising Voltage into Kingdra, switch Urshifu out into the Pincurchin. And that probably does so much damage, let the Kingdra's in Sucker Punch KO range. So I don't mind going with that. This team is very aggro. Now I could have led the Togekiss, but because I think it's the carry of this game, I didn't want it to be risk of, like, getting knocked out by, like, the opposing Raichu immediately. I think, like, Politoed, you know, in a tricky spot where it's like, do you protect? Or do you expect the Raichu to not target you down? Or do you respect it enough? They actually don't max Kingdra, which means this should just go down. Let's see. Because we have the speed advantage now due to dynamic speeds. This is Choice Specs Rising Voltage in Terrain. Yeah, that's a one-hit KO. Alright, that is one way to start off the episode. I was really expecting Kingdra to Dynamax, honestly, but I think my opponent didn't want to commit the Dynamax because they were like, oh, if I Dynamax now, with my opponent potentially having the Togekiss in the back, I'm going to be in some tricky positions. But, okay, Rillaboom comes out, so obviously there's Grassy Glide pressure now, but, like, Togekiss, you know, fares really well into both of my opponent's Pokemon. I'd really like to change to Terrain. I mean, I'm even considering double switching here. We have Rising Voltage on this, though. Like, do you max Rillaboom here? I don't want Togekiss to take any damage, quite frankly, so I think I'm actually just going to switch Raichu out into Urshifu and just go for a... Actually, we could Venoshock right now. I don't mind Venoshock. Actually, I think we'd rather want damage onto Politoed. Although, we'll knock out Politoed with we'll knock out Politoed with the one-hit KO later with Raichu. So I'm actually gonna target the Rillaboom here. Okay, I mean, that was obviously a really good turn 1, but my opponent changing terrain makes things a little bit more difficult. They are going to commit a Dynamax, which I am more than okay to see, because Togekiss is going to eat Rillaboom up. So that's exactly why I didn't lead Togekiss, right? I want to bait out the damage first, try to commit my opponent to Dynamaxing. If you can commit your opponent to maxing, and then you have a Pokemon that beats that Maxmon, like Togekiss is probably one of the best answers against Rillaboom. That's exactly why these two Pokemon are pretty much like top 2 in usage right now. So because we've already committed our opponent to maxing Rillaboom, that means we're going to be in a really good spot with the with the Togekiss. And Urshifu here with the Focus Sash is so valuable, right? Because it means like you basically have to commit 2 attacks to knock it out. They do have the Icy Wind though on the Politoed, so that will help out a lot. Okay. It's not going to do any damage to the Pincurchin. So I can get Togekiss in for free now and just go for an Airstream onto the Rillaboom. See how much Venoshock does here. It's actually really good damage, which makes me think it's not Assault Vest. Okay, so nice play by my opponent, but I don't think I really had a much better play, and once again, like I got my opponent to commit their Dynamax into the Rillaboom, which is really good. So, I'll take that. The question here is, do you protect yourself from a max Airstream? Because one play my opponent could do is like Max Guard. Also, I'm not sure I actually want Terrain up right now, right? Because if my opponent has Raichu in the back, we'd actually prefer not for the Terrain not to be up. So I'm thinking just Airstream into Rillaboom here and Rising Voltage into the Politoed. Even if Rillaboom Max Guards here, Poly probably, what, Icy Winds? Rillaboom being faster than Togekiss doesn't really concern me because, once again, in this matchup specifically, Rillaboom just has nothing to hit Togekiss. You know, you have Fake Out, so that's Max Strike. You have maybe Knock Off, Max Darkness, Grass-type attacks, and then Fighting. And Togekiss just eats all of those up, so I think we're in a great spot to max right now. And they do not Max Guard the Rillaboom, which is really good. I mean, some Rillabooms don't even carry Max Guard, right? And we get a one-hit KO. Perfect. That should just be the game then. Because even if my opponent has Raichu in the back now, we have extra turns of Dynamax. Plus, we have the speed boost onto Togekiss. And we get a nice Rising Voltage onto the Politoed as well. So, turn 1 was really big in this game, right? The thing I was most worried about was the opposing Raichu and Pincurchin. But fortunately enough for us, our opponent didn't even bring either. So far, at least. So they're just going to go for an Icy Wind, which does mean Raichu will outspeed us again. But because we're Assault Vest on the Pincurchin as well, like it's actually able to do damage, right? Like I've got Sucker Punch for Alolan Raichu if that is my opponent's last Pokemon. And anything else I don't think really scares me that much. And Rising Voltage is actually a 2-hit KO onto Politoed. I have to say I'm actually pretty impressed by Pincurchin's damage output, as it's Grassy Terrain plus Lefties. So we'll bring it up to over 50%, but I guess I'd rather see Lefties over like Citrus Berry here. So yeah, let's see what their last Pokemon is. I'd like to see Klotzer, but it is going to be that Raichu. Okay. So with that, with Raichu, yeah, I don't want to switch out my Raichu, I think. Actually, unless we can get a speed boost on my Raichu, which is possible by Airstreaming here, but like I said, I have Sucker Punch, right? You're not KOing my Togekiss, why don't we just Starfall? And, actually, is Scald more effective here? I don't remember the Pincurchin split between Special Attack and Attack. Super effective. Scald is boosted by Rain. It also is guaranteed to go off. Yeah, I don't mind going for Starfall then and Sucker Punch. I'm also curious just how much a Sucker Punch does to Raichu. I guess the one thing this doesn't cover is Weakness Policy Raichu. They're going to Helping Hand, but I think that's fine because I would guess Sucker Punch is a 2-hit KO onto this thing. So even if you somehow one-shot my Togekiss here... Oh, that's almost just a one-hit KO. Yeah, we're good. Nice. Yep, so it's Rising Voltage, but Togekiss takes that with no problem. This is exactly why I said we need a Dynamax Togekiss in this matchup. So one thing that's really important, obviously, in this format is choosing who to Dynamax and when to Dynamax. And because, like I said, I thought Togekiss was the most important Pokemon to max, I didn't want to just lead with it outright. Leading it would have actually worked out pretty well. Now, what could have been scary is if, like, Kingdra Dynamax turn 1, because my opponent literally got nothing off on turn 1, right? So it was, like, the perfect turn 1 for us. It could have been a lot scarier if Kingdra maxes, for example. But honestly, given what my opponent had, I think the only way they had the only way they beat Dynamax Togekiss is with probably Dynamax Raichu with Terrain up, which is a pretty specific win con, I think, to aim for. So yeah, we can just Airstream now and go for another Rising Voltage. So that was a really, really good first debut game with this team, so not bad. Otherwise, I think the matchup was definitely in our favor. you know, with so much hyper offense, we're going up against a pretty offensive team from our opponents then as well. So if we can outspeed them, often we'll have the advantage. That's why when you see like hyper offense versus hyper offense, whoever is going first in that matchup often has the more advantageous positioning. So not a bad game to get started. I am curious on some of the sets here. Let's see. It was Sash on the Raichu with Nasty Plot, so it wasn't Specs, Life Orb, Electric Sea Pincurchin, and then Specs Kingdra. Okay. Yeah, so I'm guessing what they were going for turn 1 was they're like, oh, I can outspeed the Raichu, I'm just going to go for Helping Hand Muddy Water and try to do as much damage as possible, which I think makes a lot of sense. But that's why Raichu under terrain is so strong, right? It outspeeds all these other Pokemon that normally get their speeds boosted, things like Kingdra, Ludicolo, Excadrill, I mean, any of the weather Pokemon, Venusaur, for example, as well. So a lot of things you can do. Goodra for the next game today. This is definitely a lot slower than the last one, a lot bulkier, but they don't have great terrain control. In fact, they don't really have any terrain control, and their only electric resist is going to be that Goodra. So, this feels like a decent Raichu game. Rising Voltage feels really strong here. I have to respect the Goodra, though. I really do. Size Spam isn't that great, so I don't see much reason to bring Indeedee. Dynamax Urshifu is actually pretty interesting here, right? Like, my opponent does not have fairies. Max Darkness and Knuckle, or sorry, the G-Max move, those two combined do a lot of damage, I feel like. The only thing I'm worried about is like a Fake Out on turn 1 from my opponent, but I kind of want to just lead Pincurchin plus the Raichu. We don't have Max Flare on this Togekiss. You don't bring Corviknight into this though, right? So I'm thinking Urshifu and Togekiss because the Togekiss can either Dynamax or serves as like defense for the Urshifu with Follow Me. Cinderace could be a really good Pokemon into this matchup, and I'm not bringing it. That might be a mistake, but we'll see. What's scary is my opponent obviously has 2 Trick Room users in the Porygon and the Jellicent, so they can pressure us with Trick Room immediately in the beginning of the game, but I think that should be alright. I'm not too worried about that. That being said, if you lead Grimmsnarl plus the Porygon, for example, it's pretty much a guaranteed Trick Room. So let's see. I like my opponent's username here too. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's good to not see like anytime our opponent doesn't have any terrain control, that's already a good start. It's gonna be Grimmsnarl or Goodra. So this is tricky in the sense that we want our opponent to commit their max like ASAP. You probably light screen here, which might mean I want to Dynamax the Urshifu. I don't know if it's physical or special Goodra. It could be like self-swagger, which seems crazy to say, but I think I'll just Rising Voltage into Grimmsnarl here. Honestly, doubling up onto that slot seems fine, because then we can get like Togekiss in. Actually, I don't know who I want to max here. I want to see what Goodra goes for in turn 1. Actually, Volt Switch here is compelling as well. What do I expect to eat up in that slot, though, right? I think I might just go for double Rising Voltage turn 1. Yeah. I mean, Rising Voltage is just such a strong attack. I'm expecting this to be... Okay, they don't max Goodra. Interesting. That's actually a great decision on their end. Because they were... Basically, they didn't max because they were like, I don't think I'm going to take any damage this turn. I think that's really smartly done on my opponent's end. That's still a one-hit KO through screens. Well, oh, that was a crit. Honestly, I don't know if we needed the crit, to be honest. Like, this is Choice Specs, Electric Terrain boosted. Like, there's just so many added boosts, right? They're actually going to go for Muddy Water. Okay. I don't mind that. And we actually dodged with Pincurchin, which is quite lucky as well. Rising Voltage comes out. How much damage does that do? More than I expected. Any chip damage on a Goodra is actually really valuable. Because I was actually expecting that to Dynamax in this early game. So, also good to confirm it's special Goodra. It's funny that we live in a world where that's like a statement, but I'm wondering if double Rising Voltage can knock out Porygon here, because I definitely want to go for that, because I am still worried about Trick Room, so yeah. To be honest, I don't expect it to pick up the knockout, but let's find out. I don't think doubling up into Goodra really provides that much value. Actually, it could. But they end up Dynamaxing here. I mean, if we knock out Porygon, I feel like we just win the game here, right? Because Goodra picks up only 1 KO. We get a free switch in into Urshifu. Or Togekiss. I don't know. I actually really think there might be a chance double Rising Voltage KOs even through Light Screen. If so, that'll be really impressive, right? Because Porygon's just one of the bulkiest Pokemon in the game. But let's see. I'm expecting this to do like 60 to 70%. Ah, that was not nearly as much as I would hope for. Alright, they're gonna max Ooze into Raichu. It makes sense. Doesn't pick up the knockout, though. Trick Room should go up here, right? Like, we don't have a great Trick Room matchup, so I'm anticipating that to go up. But let's see. Oh, they actually recover. Okay. That makes sense. I am stalling out your screens and your max, though. And, like, if you still don't Trick Room this next turn... How much does this do? Honestly, Pincurchin is doing more and Raichu's doing less in this position I'm in right now. However, that's good, though, because I think now a double up will pick up the knockout on a Porygon. So, yeah, let's just go for another double up here. Because I think what we want to do is probably sweep the game with Urshifu in this late game. I think another one will KO, so they can't Trick Room. They have to recover with Porygon now. They go for Wormwind this time around, which is interesting. And yeah, we survived because we're Assault Vest. Let's go, Pincurchin! The Wormwood does more damage in the Ooze, so I think my opponent was just hoping to pick up the knockout there. Looks like they are going to try to Trick Room. Can we knock out with Rising Voltage? Come on, Pincurchin. Don't let me down. Oh! Oh my goodness. This team is so fun. That's so good. Because now Trick Room doesn't go up. We get another free Rising Voltage. It is going to be Incineroar, so like my opponent... I think we probably want to switch Raichu out. I think Urshifu Togekiss wins this, actually, pretty cleanly. Because my opponent doesn't have Reflect, so I can just sacrifice both of my Pokemon this turn, right? I don't want to break the Sash here. I mean, what if I switched Raichu out into Togekiss here and I lose Togekiss? I think it's better to just sacrifice both of my Pokemon here, as tempting as it is to go for the Rising Voltage here onto the Incineroar. I mean, this is just Rising Voltage spam, right? Like, how strong is it? Okay, so they go for Fake Out. Yep. I don't think it's worth risking going for any risks here. Might as well just play it safe. They actually go for Geyser as the last one. Okay, it's fine by me. Because now what I can do is I get Urshifu in, I max Urshifu, which is sick too, by the way, because like we haven't played with Urshifu at all in this format, and it's a Pokemon I'm honestly like really curious about. Actually, we don't even need to follow me, right? We can just Dazzle. Because I have the Focus Sash on Urshifu, it's pretty safe. So this is how I think Urshifu should be used, not in the early game, but as a late game cleanup Pokemon, because this is like the prime position for Urshifu, right? We know we have the Focus Sash, so we can definitely take one attack from the Goodra. We know that our opponent's already committed their Dynamax. Now Urshifu literally will just be able to get guaranteed damage off with its max. So Dynamax, just go for a Max Knuckle. And Dazzle. Actually, the only fear is if I don't KO with Max Knuckle. I feel like it should, right? Like, this is Urshifu we're talking about. Alternatively, maybe we just go for the G-Max 1 blow onto Goodra. And Dazzling Gleam. I don't know if that KOs. Yeah, I think we target Incineroar here. I'm just gonna Knuckle Dazzle. Actually, I think the better play is to close combat the Incineroar and Dazzle this turn, and then Dynamax whatever next turn. Yeah, I don't like my play this turn very much. Like, I think we're still in a pretty good spot, but I think we probably had I think we had a guaranteed win if we actually close combat this turn. Because if Max Knuckle somehow doesn't pick up the knockout, we're in trouble. I went for it solely for the attack boost, but I don't think we need the attack boost in this position in the game. Alright, let's see how strong Urshifu is. Stab boosted Max Knuckle onto Incineroar. Does not pick up the knockout. Okay, so good to know that damage calc. So close combat would have picked up the KO there, yeah. Okay. They're going to be buried too. I mean, if they double up onto the Urshifu here, we could be in some trouble. Although Togekiss Dazzles will still do a ton of damage right now. Okay. Yeah, close combating was the right call there. Get a double crit. It still takes that pretty well. They're gonna Muddy Water. Okay, actually, never mind. Urshifu does not take that much damage. I thought that would do more. And they're gonna Burning Jealousy, which does get the burn, but at this point, I think it doesn't really matter. Actually, does it? Close combating was definitely the right call there. So that goes to show, don't get greedy, right? Like I got a little ahead of myself in this game, honestly. Yeah, I think just Knuckle Dazzle here is fine though. Like, we took less than 50% from that Muddy Water. Oh, actually, after the Muddy Water and the burn, we took more, right? So, I he didn't respect Burning Jealousy enough either. That was actually a perfect play by my opponent and a really poor play on my end, I think. Oh, but they did get a little bit of damage from Burning Jealousy as well. Knuckle also makes Dazzle single target. Yeah. I think it's fine to just Knuckle Dazzle here. Anyway, like, this was a position where I went for an unnecessary Dynamax. Close Combat would have just instantly sealed up that game for us, I think. Like, Close Combat Incineroar Dynamax Togekiss probably. Even though Max Togekiss doesn't fare that well into Assault Vest Goodra, like, it's still fine. So, yeah, I don't really like how I play this. Okay, now we get single target Dazzling Gleam, Muddy Waters. You don't have added damage coming out. Doesn't do very much against Goodra, though. Okay, Muddy Water. Alright, Urshifu survives. So I think Urshifu should pick up the knockout here, then. In its last turn. We're at +2 attack. So let's see if Goodra can actually survive this. But this game was a lot closer than it needed to be for how good the early game was. So, yeah, I messed up, definitely. Especially because I was actually fortunate enough to get some... I don't think the crit on Incineroar mattered, but the one on Goodra might have, actually. But we'll go for the G-Max 1 blow here. Okay, that's enough to knock out. That was too close for comfort, though. It didn't need to be that close. I don't know, though. If I close combat Dazzle, you do bring me down to my Sash immediately, which means I have to Dynamax Togekiss, but... I think in that position, it's better just to commit the Dynamax to Togekiss, even though we're up against Assault Vest Goodra. Like, they have to click Muddy Water for the first couple of turns before they start clicking Sludge Bomb, because they have to knock out the Urshifu. Actually, yeah. It was definitely, like, as long as I close combat Incineroar, you bring me down to my Focus Sash on the Urshifu, but then I just close combat into the Goodra. And that alone plus a Max Starfall should be enough to pick up the knockout. So that was me just, like, I assumed the Max Knuckle would pick up the knockout, and yeah, without, like, a special attack boosting item, or sorry, an attacking boosting item, I did not. So that goes to show why you need to always, like, think of every possible play, and if you, like, suboptimal plays, even when you have an early lead, can really allow your opponent to dig back into that game. So, not really too proud of how I played that late game. Early game was obviously excellent, but the late game was just abysmal. So, that one turn alone cost me a lot, and at least, you know, now we can use it as a learning lesson. I know how much that does. This next team is really scary, because they have Weezing, and Weezing shuts everything down here, which is not good. Yeah, Weezing shutting everything down here. Like, this team is really ability-based, so ideally we knock out the Weezing early. I don't even see how we can do that effectively. So, I gotta say, I don't like this matchup too much. I have to respect Dragapult plus the Bisharp as well. Bisharp can also just Sucker Punch Raichu. This might be a Cinderace. Togekiss Cinderace is interesting, because I can at least Airstream with that. And I think a fast Cinderace looks really good against my opponent's team. I don't know if we, play to terrain nearly as much in this game, just because of how many things my opponent has to, like, actually shut it down. That being said, regular Raichu is actually still pretty good offensively here, so let's bring that. So I'm gonna, despite this being a double terrain team, I'm not gonna bring either, because my opponent not only has the Alolan Weezing, but they also have the, Galarian Weezing, but they also have the Rillaboom, so that's, like, two things that shuts us down completely. And Pincurchin and Indeedee aren't exactly the offensive members of this team. And they actually bring both of those as a lead, so I will take that. This is really good for Cinderace, turn 1. Because we're definitely just going to Dynamax. And what's interesting is actually, because of my opponent... Let's see, I mean, I want to Airstream. I'm just, like, you can't Will-O-Wisp the Cinderace, because my typing isn't going to change. So honestly, like, I want to just Dynamax, go for an Airstream, which I think still one-shots Rillaboom. And I'm thinking of switching out here. Could also just go for an Air Slash or a Dazzle. I'm expecting Sludge Bomb, though, and I think conserving Togekiss... I mean, we do get a speed boost onto it, though, which I think is pretty valuable. I could even Airstream Rillaboom Protect turn 1, just for an instant speed boost. Sure, let's try that out. I think this is relatively safe. Cinderace into this is perfect, and that's exactly why I said we couldn't go with Raichu or Pincurchin or Indeedee in this game. I'm surprised my opponent led both of those, to be honest, but I'll take it. I have to say, though, Pincurchin has really impressed me today. Like, I did not expect it to do so much damage with Rising Voltage, and I expected the Raichu to do a little bit more, so... I'm glad we were able to knock out that Porygon in the end of that last game. But yeah, that last game was a lot closer than it needed to be, and that was my bad. Okay. Fake out into Togekiss. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Yeah, and this is great because now even if you have Will-O-Wisp on the Weezing, you can't KO us. That's a knockout onto Rillaboom. Perfect. This is exactly what you want to do with Cinderace in the early game. Just push the tempo immediately. Okay, that's good. And this is so valuable too because what I was afraid of in this matchup, nice, fake out Sludge Bomb, perfect. Yeah, that Protect was golden. Yeah, we were never doing much damage with Togekiss there, so I was like, I think we should Protect because we're not getting much mileage other than maybe an Air Slash Flinch or Crit onto the Weezing, but how valuable is that really? Okay, Inteleon comes out. Now, Inteleon can Snipe Shot, which ignores Redirection. Huh. Weezing in the back. I mean, I want to do as much damage onto Inteleon as possible right now. Maybe Max Flare. Actually, oh, if we can just change the weather, right? Yeah, why not just Max Flare into Weezing? This is one of the advantages of using the regular Cinderace over G-Max Cinderace. Yeah, sure. Dazzle and Flare here. Looks fine. Nice. Perfect. Now we got Libro up as well, so we can even change our typing so we were not hit by super effective now. I mean, this is a perfect game, basically. Ooh, Weezing does survive, though. Impressive. Okay. Let's see. Do you have a Berry? If so, if not, do you survive a Dazzle? No Berry. I should have Air Slash then, I think. I'm too used to Power Ball damage now after playing with G-Max Cinderace so much. That's still a really good turn for us, though. Okay, we knock out Weezing. Perfect. This is just the dream, right? And once again, this kind of speaks to when we were playing with like the Sandslash Ninetales team, especially in that first episode I think we had with it, where I was talking about how just having those Pokemon in Team Preview exerts a lot of pressure. This is so good for us now, right? Because we can, we know the Inteleon protected, we know we're faster right now with the Cinderace, we can even change our typing, so going for Airstream and Dazzle feels really safe here. I mean, I think this is just the win at this point, but my opponent might still want to play it out. I think you probably have to go for the double protect with the Inteleon, and then you also need to have Airstream on the Cinderace to have a chance here. Anything else and it's over. And part of why I feel really confident right now is, once again, we have Urshifu in the late game. So Urshifu can just come out and click Sucker Punch, which is so valuable against Max Dragapult, right? Like, after Dazzling Gleam damage, I'm willing to bet Sucker Punch might even just pick up a knockout if we crit the Dazzling Gleam. So, let's see. Okay. No Protect. Alright, that should be game then. Yeah. Because Airstream plus Dazzle will definitely knock out Inteleon. And what's really important is in this game we were giving Togekiss the speed boosts as well. It's actually not even Sash in the Inteleon. What a Sash on that team. I mean, Inteleon, I would think wants, like, you want Life Orb on it typically. So we'll see if Dragapult has, yeah, if Dragapult has it. I could have maybe gone for Max Darkness. I don't remember how fast the Togekiss was. Max Darkness would have been smarter if, yeah, it is policy. But it doesn't matter. Actually, no, Max Darkness doesn't accomplish anything. Never mind. Because Dragapult has Clear Body, so we literally do not get anything off with it. Yeah, this is just a pretty clean sweep. And actually now Dragapult, Cinderace reverts back to normal, so I can just go for a regular Sucker Punch. So, yeah, this is Hyper Offense at its max. You can imagine how different this game would have been if I just led with Raichu plus, like, Pincurchin or Raichu plus Indeedee, right? Like, those two, that mode of this team is just completely useless, because Rillaboom just honestly does a lot of damage to all three of those. I'm forced to switch out immediately, so what we were able to effectively do in this game was basically bait our opponent into bringing their super anti-terrain control, and then just, yeah, like, if you lead incorrectly into Cinderace, which we kind of did in yesterday's episode, it's kind of just a sweep with Cinderace, honestly. Like, Cinderace exerts so much pressure and just does so much damage. So, yeah. Alright, nice. We break out of our losing streak yesterday, got a couple of nice wins today. Yeah, I'd normally play a fourth game here, but I do have to head out in just a bit, so unable to do so. But I'm curious about that team, so let's see. Black Sludge with Taunt on the Weezing, Sash, which isn't a surprise. Brick Break on Rillaboom with Assault Vest. Life Orb on the Inteleon, Flame Orb Conkeldurr, and Policy Dragapult. Policy Dragapult on this team comp is interesting, because, like, you don't actually have a great way to activate the Policy, but yeah, I think, you know, a lot of players want to use Weezing or Rillaboom specifically for terrain control. Once again, I was a little bit surprised my opponent brought both, because I feel like if you lead one and something a little bit more offensive, like, what I was expecting was maybe a combination of, like, Dragapult Bisharp, for example, or Dragapult plus Weezing, Dragapult plus Rillaboom, because that's, like, a little bit control against the terrain stuff, right? I think the main thing that really helped us in that last game, once again, and this was kind of like what we were doing poorly yesterday, and just in the games people lose to Cinderace, it's often your opponent leads Cinderace, you let something that doesn't do very well against it on turn 1, and then you're basically like, how do I weather the storm? Because if you don't lead correctly into Cinderace, that Pokemon can just literally pick up 3 knockouts in 3 turns, which is why it is one of the strongest Pokemon, and definitely one of the top Dynamax threats in this format. So, you know, my opponent was at least able to shut down the Libero, but that actually kind of worked in our favor in the sense that, yeah, I wasn't even worried about a potential Will-O-Wisp from that Weezing, which is why that turn 1 play on our end was super safe. And that's why leading a Fake Out user into something like in Dynamax and just KO you turn 1 can always be really, really scary. So, yeah, glad to get a couple of really fun games with this team. I think that second one is the only one where I think I would have played a little bit differently in that end game. Once again, all I needed to do at the end of that second game was close combat into the Incineroar, Dynamax the Togekiss to get a Starfall off, and then just close combat Starfall. So I made it a lot closer than it needed to be, and that's a good lesson of how like you can improve your end games. Like, yeah, did we win that game? Sure, but did I play perfectly? Absolutely not. And my opponent can win that if they crit Muddy Water, or if they get accuracy drops on Togekiss, for example. So when you're up in an advantageous position, you always want to ask yourself, okay, what can I do to make sure I do not throw away the lead? How do I account for accuracy drops, critical hits? And, you know, the best way for both of those actually is typically Dynamax. And so by Dynamaxing the Urshifu, that was kind of just a grief because I got nothing out of those attack boosts either. So, retrospect, the correct play would have been to knock out Incineroar close combat, Dynamax Togekiss, Starfall. Even with the Salt Vest and the Light Screen being up, like, you don't do that much damage to Togekiss in return. We have a 50% chance of getting a critical hit. The worst case is if you get a Muddy Water drop, accuracy drop onto the Urshifu, and then we miss close combat. But even then, Togekiss probably still wins that 2v or 1v1 as long as we get like 1 crit along the way, because Starfall just does so much damage. So yeah, I wasn't really happy about how I played that one turn, and that could have cost us really huge. Like, it ended up working out, and in the majority of the time, the way we play that still ends up working out. But like I said, you always want to mitigate for all the RNG that can happen, and I didn't do that with my endgame scenario in game 2. So yeah. That's going to be it for this one, guys. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Please feel free to try out the team yourselves. Link is in the description below for all the good stuff. And, yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you soon. All right, peace.